Hello everybody. In this video, I'll be showing you how to do a proper folder structure in React Native. This is just a bare React Native app. It's not using Expo or anything, as you can see. I will be making, at the end of this, there'll be another part, another story, whatever you want to call it, at the end, and that'll be the Expo as well. It's pretty much the same, just this looks a little bit different. So obviously here is your app TSX. This is your main file that everything runs through. So first things first, you want to create a new folder. You want to name it assets. Inside assets, you'll have another folder called images, and you might have another folder maybe for fonts. That's a pretty common one. So there's your assets. This is where you would put all your images and all your fonts or anything else that you're kind of importing in and going to be using in your app. And then you'll want to make a folder, in your full thing here. New folder, and you want to name it source, SRC. Source is for all of your source code. So this is going to be for all of your screens, your components, your services, everything like that. That's all going to be done through your source folder. So inside our source folder, we'll name one called screens. Screens. We'll make another one called services. Another folder called components. Components, and another one called styles. Now, the general structure for these are fairly simple. So I'll explain what each folder does first. So their components folder, you could have inside your components folder, you say you have another folder called home. Yeah, we'll do home screen components. So there's a folder there. And inside that, you might have one of, let's say, custom input.tsx or .js, whatever you want to do. So functional export. So inside here, you would have your custom components. This would be like a custom input. So this is something that you can continue using throughout your code. So like, let's say you have, well, here, we'll do the custom input to show. So let's say you have a bunch of like search bars, you have a bunch of, for onboarding, right? You have your email, your password, when you're doing your sign up, you'll have those kinds of things. So custom input would be kind of useful for that. So you only make it once and then you import it in and do it from there. So those are for your components. You could also have navigation components. So in this, it could be your screen stacks, stuff like that could be done in your navigation. That's how I personally like to have my components. Of course, some people change it a little bit, but I find this to be the most neat and the most tidy for me. Now, screens. Screens is pretty self-explanatory. You could have your onboarding. You could also have your home, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, let me just home. So another thing to note is when you're making your folder structure, you generally want to have it all the same. So I personally like to do mine in camel case. I think the general rule is camel case. However, if you're going to change it, just make sure it's all the same throughout the whole app. Make sure they're all the same. So like if you're like here, like if I'm gonna have this as capital, I want to have all my folders as capitals, including services, styles, everything like that. Try and make it all same, all uniform. Just looks better, it's easy to read, and it's easier for importing and all that kind of stuff. And then like here you could have your home.tsx, and this would be your home screen. And for those of you wondering how I'm getting all this to come up, I'm just using React Native Snippets. It's an extension here. Let's see. Simple React snippets. Very simple. It's nice to use. But yeah, so that's that. A little off topic, but that's okay. And then for services. Now, services is where you would put all of your APIs. Like if you had an auth service dot tsx, that's where you would put this. This is important. This is where all your APIs will go. You generally want to have it, all of them in here, and you can have them separate through folders as well. Like if you have more for onboarding, services, you can have them there. So this would be like your authorization. I guess that's kind of auth service would go there, but any of your onboarding services, again, for homes as well. And that will all go inside of the services folder. Now let's make this look a little bit neater now. And now for last but not least, we have the styles folder. This is pretty self-explanatory. The first thing you're going to want to make here is a global styles.tsx. And this will have all of your global styles in here. So you could have it as import style. Where are your style sheet from React Native? Import your global styles, and then do export const global styles, and then have this, and that. And this is where you put all of your global styles, like for your container. So flex of 1. Background color. Sure. Oh, what don't you like? That has that. Oh. Silly me. There we go. So this is where you put all your global styles, something that you're going to use throughout your whole app, like your background color, your stuff like that, stuff that's going to be used not just in specific folders. And then from there, you can include it to have like your onboarding styles. Jeez, can't type today. And here's where we have like your login screen styles. If you want to have it more separated. Now, obviously, you can have it so they are the same. So you can have them inside your files, like here. I can have it so React Native functional export with styles. And now you have a style sheet in here as well. You can have it in the bottom of your app. I personally don't like to do it that way. Oh, what happened there? Interesting. Very interesting. React Native functional export. Must have just typed too fast. But I personally like to have mine separate. I like to have them in their own folder so I can go through and see them, and it's just the styles, and our files aren't thousands of lines of code. That's how I like to do it. Of course, it's all up to your personal preference. If you want to do it, then do it. If don't, then don't. It's all good. And last but not least, in our main folder, we also need one called backend. And backend here, this is where you're probably going to connect through your API and stuff like that. Connect to your database and everything like that, and trying to want to keep it separate. I will be coming out with a video shortly of keeping your environment variables out of your code for Git and stuff like that for Expo. Obviously for here there is files and stuff to do that, and if you would like to see it, I'll do that. But I found when I was searching for them for Expo, I couldn't find anything. So after I figured it out, after a little bit of searching, I thought maybe people will like it. So I'm gonna make one of those. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll open these all up again. Services or components. These are for your home screen components. sorry, not your home screen components, all your screen components, your navigation components, stuff like that. Screens is where you'll have all of your screens for your project. So you'd have your home screens, your onboarding screens, everything there. Services, this is where you'll have like your auth service, your onboarding services, stuff like that, your API calls, everything like that. And last but not least is your styles. This is the only one where you almost always have the same file, and that will be global styles. Whether it's .js or .tsx, it's up to you. And then you'll have each folder will be your onboarding styles, your home screen styles, your profile styles, anything like that. That'll all go inside the styles folder. Try and keep everything nice and separate. And that'll all be contained inside your SRC, your source code file. And that, my friends, is everything on your and your assets. Your assets folder. You also have your fonts and your images. And that's everything for your folder structure. Okay, and we are now on to the React Native Expo folder structure. It'll look mostly the same, but there'll be a few key differences, especially in the way everything looks. It might be a little bit confusing. But anyway, so the first file you'll see is your app.js. This is your main file. So in the other one, it's app.tsx. In this, it is just plain old app.js. You will also see that you already have an assets folder. These are for specific files, and I can go through with them what they do in another video. That might be kind of useful. I know it was a little challenging to try and figure it out on my own at first, so I suppose I can make a video of it if you guys would like to see that. But that's how it's going to look for you when you do the Expo version of this. So I guess we'll start off with assets first. Inside your assets, you're going to want to create another images folder. And in Expo, you do not need to create a fonts folder. You kind of import fonts dynamically. They get imported just before runtime. And I can show you guys how to do that if you would like to see that, again, in another video. But that's the gist of it. You don't need the fonts folder. You do, however, probably want an images folder. And please do not get rid of these. They're kind of important. We can change things around, but don't touch these for now. And that's going to be the assets folder. Suppose we'll also probably need a folder called backend, where we'll have all of our API calls for going to backend through, if you're going to use like Firebase or MongoDB or anything like that to connect it, you do that through your backend folder. You'll also, of course, need your source folder again. I'm going to try and blast through this one because if you guys watched the previous part of this video, I already showed you how to do this. It'll look mostly the same. The only real difference is how many folders there are and the fact that you already have an assets folder. So inside the source folder, again, we'll have with components, components folder. You'll also have your screens folder. You'll also have your styles folder, and you will also have your services folder. Again, I already talked about what the components are, what the screens are, what the services are, and what the styles are. Global styles.js. Now, I personally do the styles on Expo. I do it all through JS rather than TSX. That's more of my kind of preference. If that's not what you like to do, then of course that's fine. But I like to do it all through JS on Expo. Oops. Export. Like this. And then again, you have your global styles, you have your services, your screens, your components. It's all in your source code file. You have your backend folder, and your assets folder was already generated. Inside of that, you just created a new folder called images. And that is pretty much it for your folder structure. This is done for both React Native native CLI and also for Expo. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day.